third day. Today it is the third day of our intensive practice. That means that the retreatants are full in swing of intensive practice, and the other half of the present people are probably rather expecting some classical Dhamma talk, which is not exactly on today's program, because we have things to deal with. I have here quite some questions from the retreatants, which I wanted at least briefly to react to that. I found the lifting of the foot to be like opening an old creaky door slowly. Good. I found the moving of the foot to be like moving, brisking a paintbrush across a canvas. Yeah, possible. Yeah. I found the placing of the foot back on the ground, no back in this practice, like removing the foot from a mound of wet, heavy sand. The third needs perhaps a little bit more to work on. And then there is a question here: do we have a soul? That's a provocative question in Buddhism, because anatta means no soul. Atta in Atman in Hinduism means something which goes from one reincarnation into the next one. Something which takes body. Carne in Italian language means meat. So incarnation means to go into the meat. And so this idea of Atman or Atta in Pali language was quite contradictory to the teaching of the Buddha. And revolutionary as he was in his early Upanishad time, he was proclaiming anatta, not self, not me. So this question, do we have a soul? I would be careful to be some specific about it, because there are things which we perhaps don't know really. And of course we can just believe into things which was said by our master. That would be probably the right thing to reflect it that way. But what I think we can pretty certainly observe from our practice here, that everything is in flux. And what goes from, still, Buddhist teachings, the classical ones, really are operating with the idea of rebirth. Not necessarily reincarnation, but rebirth. It's the same and it is not the same. Rebirth means that when this body dies, that there is still some potentiality which will cause another arising of another living being. These things which actually goes from or connects this existence with the next one. Speaking in the terms of Abhidhamma, it's just cause and effect. So there is definitely no any me which goes from this existence into the next life. Certainly not me, because when we will be, if we will be successful in insight meditation, we will really see that this idea of self is just created by our mind. it has no ultimate reality. There are functions, there are things functioning in the body, functioning in the mind, but the idea of me is artificially added to it. There is individuality. I agree absolutely with that, because karma is individual, first of all. So, with another possibility to understand the rebirth, it is the unfinished, unresolved karmic potential from this life, which, when the body dies, is still here, will call together a consciousness which will find the opportunity for conception for some kind of a next life. So regard it rather as almost a physical process of some kind, as if energy or potential, which at the end of this life, of this life term here, is unfinished and therefore calls for another opportunity to give its potential back into another life. But as it is, as we react always to all the situation in our life, we are creating new karma, new karmic potential, which normally accumulates, and the life is spending karma, and because we react, we are creating new karma. Which is a bad news, and it's a good news at the same time, because bad news in the sense that when this body will die, there will be new potentiality for next life. That's the bad news, by the way. And that we have our steering wheel in our hand. That's the good news. That we can pave. The law of karma is a beautiful, positive message that we can create, we can pave, influence our future. And that's what we are doing here, is exactly that. That we are learning not to react blindly on the situation of our life. We are training here wisdom and a whole bunch of wholesome qualities which can make space in our mind enough when something good happens that we do not greedily want more of it, which would cause greedy karma for the future, or if something bad happens to us, that we do not react with anger, repression, hatred, jealousy, all these negative things, which would create negative karma, which would just turning further this perpetuum mobile again and again, called samsara. That the Buddha gave us a tool in our mind and in our hand to influence this blind repeating of the patterns and to bring more wisdom into our life. And not only wisdom, more compassion, more loving kindness, all these positive things which can contribute to the better future. Be it in better rebirth, even in this life. The karma, of course, finds opportunity to give fruit already in this existing life. Not fully, but there is a kind of a influence, and the more in the future rebirth, when we consider it in this way. So back to the question: do we have a soul? I don't think. There may be some appearance of that. Usually I give this kind of analogy. Imagine a tree. Yes, it's there, beautiful, green with the trunk, with the branches. We see tree. But if you go really near to it with some microscope, you will enter the cellular life of, or a cellular existence of this tree. And suddenly you see completely different something. The cells, how they are transforming all these juices and the chemistry of the cell with the nucleus and all that around, and there are many of them and they are working together. It's something completely different. Still the tree in a way, but seen from completely different perspective, or how to call that. And if you take electron microscope, you can go to the molecular structure of the cells, and you will be in a completely different world again, where completely different rules are functioning and kind of directing the existence on that level. And if we would go to the atomic level, again, completely different with subatomic particles, which can appear at a different place at the same time. Mind-blowing situation. And that's all the tree. You know, so similarly, with all these things of our mind and of the world around us and of the self, we are normally on the level of appearances. The tree is appearance. So also the world and ourselves, that's the familiar kind of reality, apparent reality. But if we go with insight into that, what we are doing here in insight meditation, completely different things are coming out. Paramatta level of experience, which some of us are already successful in discovering this level of existence, paramatta, ultimate truth. We are actually, with insight meditation, we are coming nearer and nearer. We are coming out of the appearance of things, nearing the truth. And completely different things are there. The people are probably not yet aware of it. There is no self. When you are aware of the sensation of in-breath and out-breath, there is no self whatsoever at that time. You know? And so, also, if we consider these concepts from another spiritual system like Christianity, you know, very important aspect, the idea of soul, which is created by God and is collecting the fruits of our deeds. There is some similarity with karma. Also, there is a good karma and bad karma. In Buddhism, there is good deeds and sins. In Christianity, you know, very, very similar again. So there may be some similarity, but I would say that Buddhism goes like to the atomic level. Yeah, really on the ultimate reality, there is no self, no soul, but it's possible that on some cellular level, comparing it with the analogy of the tree, that there may be some appearance of something which appears to be constant, unchanging, like connecting one life with the others, whatever. It's simply not the last truth. I would be tolerant like that. You know, finding always some way not to disparage another spiritual system which is so dear for some people, and not just lying my trip on them, because I believe that there is usually possible to find some explanation which will cover the others as well. By the way, somebody was asking here, what is the strangest experience you can recall from your meditative work, current life? What is the strangest? There are quite some of them. Almost everything happened in my first practice in the Swiss mountains. 3 months in a cottage, mountainous cottage, and snow all over the place. I was working very hard. It was so painful. But then, after weeks of intensive, continuous practice from the morning till the night, always with the breath, always rise, always in breath, always out. After about 6 weeks, the first great changes arrived, really. And it's beyond any description. And what I would like to mention is something which was later, even later than that. It was, I think, the end of the 2nd month or beginning of the 3rd month. What came, probably spiritual people would describe it as encounter with higher self. It's something completely heretical with Buddhism. But it appeared in my practice, so what? And again, I explain it exactly like this. It was something in between. It was deeper, still appearance. It was not the last reality, the last truth, because it lasted not very long. It was perhaps just two meditations and was away. But still, the encounter was strong and left quite some impact on me, because in fact, the first practice was so unusual because I did not have all these instructions what I am giving you here. You know, it was a kind of a spontaneous kind of practice. I was certainly somehow influenced by non-duality. Even before I started the meditation, there was already image about non-duality. How to describe it? It was like an instance. Was it me or was it not me? That there was not really this kind of a question. It was so clear if it was a part of me or not. It was something which was dearly caring, enormously caring for my spiritual growth. And definitely it was fatherly in a way, but it was extremely powerful. It could influence the events of the living person. I remember the thought came to me, if for my spiritual growth would be good to meet another person, it would be able to arrange anything. For example, break my leg, to go to the hospital and meet the person there. You know, in a way, an kind of an instance which doesn't look at the little pain of the little ego. It was high up above all this egoistic concern. It has the high spiritual interest for spiritual growth without compromising, I would say like that. So that was one of the interesting encounters. And as I said, after few meditation, it was completely away, never appeared again. So whatever, some appearance, perhaps of awakening wisdom of one's own heart, I don't know. Another very strange, and this is something perhaps I should sit straight. There was a meditation, and that was time in the practice when it got very swift. There were quite a number of purifying processes going on with tears and all that. Already beyond that, beyond resistance. And then in one meditation, it was not a thought. I will not call it realization, but it was kind of an evidence which came to me. A feeling, very strong, clear feeling that I am okay. Never in my life I would have this kind of thought. There was always something wrong somewhere. Always unsatisfactory, not good enough, not skillful enough, always some gap, and suddenly this kind of a harmony, I'm okay as I am. So I meditated a little bit further. Then came the second kind of deepening of this evidence. I was always okay. And that was not possible to discuss it because it was so evident. It was completely new way of perspective, of looking, of values, whatever. Turn it whichever way. So with this awe, I meditated further, and there was a third level of that. The world is okay. No way to explain that. And it was evidency. You cannot discuss it. It was so clear. And the meditation ended with the clarity there was never ever anything wrong with the world. And because this was not a thought, it left quite a deep imprint on me. And even when a little bit later, some day or like that after, suddenly I noticed, well, this is not what Buddha taught. Buddha taught the truth of suffering. So I interrupted this process in my practice and turned to the original teaching of the Buddha, which had another kind of its own development, and there were another states and like that. But from this kind of experience until today, there are still definite kind of clarities which perhaps weakened a little bit because this is all 45 years back. It's a long time, and lots of things in between happened, of course. What still, until today, remains is practically no fear of death. Another thing is a very deep, primordial trust that the things in this world are happening by itself in fairly appropriate way, that I don't need to put my finger into the law of unfolding of this world, because what I would probably do is rather infringe or mess with the natural tendency of things to happen in a correct way. So there was a trust that some people have this urge to save the world. There is a wisdom, or there would be even better word if I know English better, wisdom which actually governs the happening in the apparent universe, what we call the world. There is already lots of intelligence, Dharma, the law, the truth, the law. And the things are unfolding according to the law. Karma is only one of these laws. Some people think that everything is karma. Not at all. No. Abhidhamma is quite explicit that Abhidhamma teaches there are 24 causes why the things unfold as they unfold. And karma vipaka, karma the cause, vipaka the result, are only 2 of the 24. So it would be incorrect to think that everything in my life is a result of my karma. No, it isn't. But how I experience the things which are happening to me, that's the result of my karma. There are things that everybody experiences differently. The same things happen to many people. Everybody experiences differently. That's because we have individual karma. And so, when I started to teach, having still this kind of memories and even some clarities also about these things, to the students of my retreats, at the end, I would give an additional training for the everyday life. Hopefully I'll be able to translate it into English properly. I gave them a mantra to practice always on Wednesdays, from the morning till the night. Already waking up, already starting with this mantra in the mind. Today I want the things to be as they are. And they should repeat this mantra through the day. Today I want the things to be as they are. My assistant had a car accident on Wednesday. There was an icy road. She stood up, she went down, looked at for me. Today I want the things to be as they are. She was brave. It's a deep teaching. It's a deep teaching. But only one a day. You know, usually we are full of revolt against the things as they are, against the things I am. Always revolting, always something different, always criticizing, because it does not fit my ego idea. The things will be as they are anyway, if you wish or not. It is just to put yourself into harmony with how the things are. So that was the aim of that. To get peace and to get wisdom with the family and so on. That area, I always have a respect for parents, because they have to educate the children in the way to be ready for a normal functioning in the life. So there is always kind of a bracket for parents rearing children. But for us generally, you know, so these were the things which led me to the definition that we don't need to push the water to flow down. There's a lots of freedom coming from that. Suddenly you are free on many, many facets. It's definitely not any and freedom is different things, but lots of weight falls off your shoulder to have this kind of realization. So that because somebody asked about strange things in my practice. What do we think? Do you believe in coincidences? Well, on the level of appearances there is another microscopic level of things where there is always some kind of a law behind the things as they happen. So it's a question of optic, how we look at the events. To deal with the other questions here, if the mind is still, will the body move? No. Body can move only when it becomes an impulse, intention to move. We can see it in our meditation, and the theory goes that behind every move of the body is intention. Very subtle intention for the blinking of the eye, but a strong intention to open the fridge. So, body doesn't move by itself. If the body is still, what will cause it to move? It can be subliminal intention, which is not conscious, because it comes from subconscious. How is it that meditation enhances physical healing? Well, not much, to be honest. No. Buddha is quite often in the iconography portrayed as a doctor. Kuan Yin, usually that's another bodhisattva, Avalokiteshvara. Usually in the Chinese iconography, it's a female holding a kind of a bottle, meaning that's the medicine for the humanity. But to be clear, the Buddha's medicine is for the mind, mainly. And only in a secondary function it may indirectly or directly give some healing even to the body. You know, especially in the area of psychosomatic disease. So healing the mind will also heal the body. But if it is another kind of illness caused by bacteria or virus or whatever, not so regularly. There are cases of miraculous healing, but you know they happen even to people having nothing to do with Buddhism. So I would be a little bit slow to spread out kind of that idea that meditation will heal your bodily problem. So I think we are already 1 hour together. That's enough. I didn't go through all these quotes, so we can continue tomorrow morning with the remaining one. At the end, I would like to read few things. This is one little things from Jack Cornfield. He was reflecting his years with Ajahn Chah, this master forest tradition in Thailand. My teacher Ajahn Chah said, there are 2 basic ways of practice. One way of practice is to be comfortable, and it's valuable. You can sit a little and get yourself quiet. You can follow the daily schedule without much problem. You keep the precepts so you don't harm people and they start to like you. And everything becomes nicer in your life. It becomes more comfortable and more pleasant because you live a good life and you're peaceful. The other way to approach spiritual practice is not to be involved in trying to be comfortable, but rather to be free or liberated. And that way of practice has nothing whatsoever to do with comfort. Comfort may come and it may not. Sometimes it may be terribly uncomfortable. But its goal or its direction is not comfort. Its goal is freedom. It's a wonderful thing, and it is the real legacy of the Buddha. Ajahn Buddhadasa said about Nibbana. He had a remarkable way of describing what Nibbana is. Nibbana is the coolness of letting go, detachment, the inherent delight of experience when there is no grasping or resistance to life. No grasping and no resistance, flowing along. For the people meditating here, this quote comes from Eckhart Tolle. It is not exactly what we are doing here, but it is very close to it, and it is a beautiful description which on its own is beautiful. He said, he wrote, beginning of freedom is the insight that you are not identical with your own mind. As soon you start to observe your mind, you will activate the higher awareness, Sat. You will perceive that behind the limits of thinking, there is a vast, unbounded sphere of intelligence, and that the thinking is just one tiny aspect of this intelligence. You will see that from this sphere originates all which is really important, like beauty, love, creativity, joy, inner calm, and you will begin to wake up. So we can sit for a minute just as we are to reflect what has been said. Just close your eyes for 1 minute. If there was anything which was somehow resonating or revealing something, don't forget it. Repeat it for yourself. Call it to your memory.